guys back now, and we're talking about homes. This is a little bit different, but yet very cool.
It could be very cool. It could be the wave of the future, maybe even sooner than that. It's affordable, safe, strong, and green art, and it comes from a very unlikely source. Check this out. Buildings and homes are now being made out of shipping containers. That's right, these things. They come from overseas, packed with anything from clothing to electronics to cars. Then they sit in ports. Many are never touched again, but one company is trying to change all that. SG Blocks is partnering with building companies to turn those containers into strong, sturdy, cheap, and green homes. Just think one day you could be living in the same container that shipped your furniture here. David Cross and Bruce Russell of SG Blocks are joining me now from Dallas, Texas, with more about this new building material and what it could mean to the future of building. Guys, thanks for joining me.
Hello, Janet. Thank you for having us.
First off, I have to ask you, how are you building homes from crates, from shipping containers?
Well, Bruce?
Bruce?
Sure. The biggest single issue in the home building industry and multifamily is how do you make something green in this industry? It's a conservative industry, and frankly, shipping containers are one of the greenest aspects of the building industry.
How so?
As we introduce them. They're fully recycled. They're what we call value cycling, which Dave is kind of the expert on. He was the visionary behind all this and really came up with that concept.
Well, and Janet, value cycling is taking something and creating a higher and better use than its initial use that it was intended for. And for example, with the cargo containers, it takes approximately 800 kilowatt hours of energy to recycle the 8,000 pounds of steel that's in a container. It only takes 400 kilowatt hours to value cycle that container into a building block, an SG block. That's a 95% less carbon footprint, and folks on the environmental front love that.
That is such great news, and obviously going green these days is so important to all of us. I have to ask you this question. Is it true the containers are termite-proof, mold-resistant, and able to handle winds up to 175 miles an hour? David?
All of that is true. The containers themselves, the primary construction component is core 10 steel, and termites just aren't going to go after steel when they've got some softwood somewhere else to go after.
Certainly. And what about homes that, you know, people where they're living in places that are susceptible, very vulnerable to inclement weather? Are you approaching these people in these areas to say, hey, you know what, these are homes that you could really use?
Right, a lot of engineering goes into this. I mean, a shipping container is inherently strong. The SG block, the S stands for safe, and we're working very hard to try to take these into coastal areas where there's hurricane issues and to seismic areas and do the kind of engineering that it takes so that we can use these as real building blocks, and that's really what we're about.
Yeah, I would think they would. They would work really well out west in California for earthquakes, and obviously down south and the southeast in Florida. In fact, I was reading, David, that you have pitched your idea to officials in Key West for affordable housing. True?
That is true. I fielded the initial phone calls, but Bruce was fortunate enough to make the trip down to Key West.
Somebody had to go, you know. Yeah, the whole issue there again is if you have a hurricane, a lot of houses can be made strong enough to stand. What we're trying to do is come up with a system that is sustainable both on the front side, but then on the back side also. When they come back home, it's not just a disaster with insulation, and we have some systems that we're researching and developing that will just help solve some of those long-term kind of problems.
So how are you being met? How are your ideas being met with officials down there?
We've had amazing support just across the country. I think people are wanting to look at something new. The conventional building wisdom is it's been a wisdom around for many years, and we're trying to fit within a lot of the context of that, not trying to reinvent every new part of building, but we're creating a block as a block to the industry so that they have an alternative, and we've gotten wonderful reception.
Okay, and you've talked about the fact that they're affordable. What kinds of prices are we looking at for a single family home, say?
I think the issue of affordability stands on both the front side, going out to a $20 to $30 a square foot for the structural part of the building. You can probably stick frame in the Midwest and do it cheaper than that, but for coastal areas, for expensive areas that it's hard to build, and then expect it to be there and have it there for a long time, a 50-year kind of proposition is really what we're about, and that affordability comes on both the front side and the back side of the project.
And you can build these pretty quickly, right, guys?
They're amazing. They're just amazing. And we did a recent one in Fort Bragg, and 5,000 square foot, and it just went up. They're big blocks. They're 320 square foot each time, and you can put them up in just an enormously time-saving kind of system.
All right, David Cross and Bruce Russell of SG Blocks, 320 square feet, set every 15 minutes. Thanks, guys. Good luck.
Thank you, Janet.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Really interesting concept and premise there, Art, wouldn't you say?
I get it now. At first, I was thinking, what do they do? Just carve a couple of windows out of these crates that we see rolling down the highway and call it a home? It's like a modified mobile home.
Right. Well,
but they're taking the material and redoing it and building the homes.
It's anything but a mobile home. These things, as they say, can withstand really, really heavy winds. They're hurricane perfect almost in terms of withstanding that kind of weather.
Not a bad looking home. The picture that we saw there looks pretty traditional.
Yeah,
you wouldn't look at it and think that it's anything other than just a standard home.
Yeah.
And I know that the companies are trying to recycle different metals more these days, and this may be the way to go with that. The affordability, though, that's another issue. $20 to $30 a square foot. They're making it more like long term, but I think that he said that you can build cheaper than that.
Yeah, and you know what? It seems like it's going to be something that's going to have to take off, if for nothing else than the environment. The fact that they're green and that they're trying to conserve in so many different ways, that speaks volumes with a lot of people.
I don't think you'd have to worry too much about maintenance with that, like you said, termites and the wood
mold
decaying
and mold
and all that.
Right.
So, it could be right for some people.
Be interesting to see what happens. Yeah.
Pros and cons, just
You
like
bet.
anything else. And who knows, maybe your next home is out there on Interstate 95 right now, or out on the harbor.
Talk about a mobile home. Starts out that way. Doesn't end up that way, but it starts out that way.
All right, Janet, thank you very much. Very interesting interview.